Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Golden Opportunities Coaching. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is we give counsel on a variety of social, emotional, and spiritual and coaching topics, hopefully to bring you some degree of light into your life on things that may be giving you a hard time. And today we're going to talk about things that may make you weaker minded. Now, being weak-minded doesn't mean you're a bad person, so I do want to get that out of the way. By the way, please like, subscribe, comment if this audio is helpful to you. But just being a weaker person means most likely that you've been through some trauma or some things that you haven't recovered from, and so your mind is negatively affected because you tend to fall into patterns that don't serve you as well mentally or emotionally. And so there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things I want to talk to you about today in regard to being weak-minded. So a weak-minded person is an individual that has no self-control. You get to a place where you're looking for that next high, be it alcohol, drugs, emotional bump of getting affection or attention, sexuality, gambling, any really self-destructive behavior. And so what happens is all you care about is feeling good. And, if you're going through a hard time in life, you can be that way for a couple of days and usually recover. But if you're that way for several weeks or several months, then you'll have to rebuild your life from the bottom. I know in my early 20s, I was there. I understand what that's like. It's no fun, especially when you don't have a good relationship with actions and consequences. So, matter of fact, part of the reason that I got into coaching in great part was because I did rebuild my own life, and I know what that takes, and I know what that looks like. So if you struggle with self-control, you might have a weaker mind. The inability to choose or being indecisive is another major factor in having a weaker mind. People who are strong-minded know what their preferences are. They can easily identify a preference and stick to it, understanding the consequences of choosing to follow a course of action to the end. They don't have to wonder about being kicked out socially or negatively affected because they understand that sometimes you just have to make a decision based on the information you know, and you believe, and here's a key, that you can recover if you make a decision that doesn't serve you well now or in the future. So a person that has difficulty making choices, whether they be on small, medium, or large aspects of life, might be weaker minded because they're looking for approval through making the choice, which ultimately never ends well because then you get into the really murky water of, are you making your own choices or someone else's choices? And when you're making someone else's choices, how long are you going to live someone else's version of your life? That's a tough thing for lots of people. Fear being alone. So, look, we human beings are social creatures, and we are designed to be in relationship and community with each other. But sometimes, for a period or length of season of life, you're meant to be alone or spend more time by yourself than is average. If you fear being alone to the point where you will change your behavior in order just to have someone, especially in romantic relationship, but this also goes into friendship and family dynamics. When you change yourself just to have someone in your life or a group of people in your life, you tend to be a weaker-minded person because approval matters more than your own preferences. And this is a big one of a lot of root causes to larger problems, such as why am I always abused? Why am I always forgotten? Why am I always exhausted? Why am I always financially broke? And usually it comes back to, in some way, either fear of being unliked for not giving and not being liked by everyone, or fear of being alone. These two things kind of go hand in hand. Because if I give in to everybody else, then I will, in fact, not have to confront being alone. But if I'm alone, it's because I didn't give in. And so that's kind of what I call a negative feedback loop. That if you fear being alone, you're going to be more malleable to suggestions from other people that may not be in your best interest. And if you are liked by everyone, you don't have to confront being alone. So you kind of go around that circle many times until you break the pattern. If you have a mindset that is focused on the past and the traumas of the past consistently, now that doesn't mean it won't come across your mind, maybe even a couple times a month or right after an immediate trauma, several times in a week. But if you're talking and thinking nostalgically in a good way or negatively about traumatic experiences that happened months or years ago on a regular basis, then you have a past-based mindset, and ultimately that is never good because a past-based mindset moving forward becomes extremely difficult. What generally happens with someone that has a past-based or trauma-based mindset is that even when they're making progress, they'll eventually do something to sabotage that progress just so they can prove to their subconscious mind that they were right, that they shouldn't have tried in the first place. I've literally seen people who are homeless do this, and people that are multimillionaires do this. If you're stuck in the past, you've got to break that cycle if you really want to maximize your life. And so the next one is being a quitter. Weak-minded people quit. They look at things and say, there's only one way to do something. There's only one way to get a job, and that's to get a college degree. There's only one way to get a partner, and that's to be a doormat. There's only one way to have a family, and that's through blood relation and biology. There's only one way to whatever. And so quitters live that one-way mentality pretty religiously and pretty consistently. And then when things don't go the way they plan, they quit and walk away and either do something else sometimes or more likely become emotionally paralyzed because the thing they think was supposed to work didn't work, and ultimately things fall apart. I am in my 13th year with this bunch of businesses I'm running now in one iteration or another. But overall, in my 23rd year of being an entrepreneur, I have failed far more times than I ever thought possible. And I've only quit on things that I couldn't find a way to make them work. And here's the key. I had something else that was working before I quit on what wasn't working. So I transitioned into something that was growing away from something that was dying, because when we quit without having a backup plan, we actually make it harder to get restarted, and that becomes dangerous. So the biggest one, and this is, I'll show a human side here, my personal biggest pet peeve is people with entitlement or think the world owes them something. You're weak-minded if you think the world owes you anything. In reality, there are 7 billion people on the planet. They all have struggles. They all have challenges. Some are worse than others. Some are luckier than others. But we all have things that make life difficult from time to time. I am a physically disabled person. My entire life, from birth forward, I've had more struggles than the average person. However, I realize the world owes me nothing. The government owes me nothing. People owe me nothing because they didn't create my condition. And whether we believe in a deity that creates or just random chance, something created outside of ourselves, whatever conditions we are in. And yes, they're unfortunate. And in a completely just, fair world, we all would be made whole again. However, factually speaking, this very rarely happens, if at all. And when it does, these are people who need to look and say, okay, what can I do with this positivity? The world doesn't owe you anything, but it gives you everything. What that means is that there are possibilities for any person, be they from a third world country, be they from poverty, be they from physical, mental, or emotional disability or abuse, whatever your circumstances, you're still given opportunities every single day to change your life for the better or the worse. And it's the power of your choices, which is a freedom that no one can take from you. You may not like the consequences, but you always have choices that will determine what you do with your life. The next one, and second to last one on this list, is you are weak-minded if you let your emotions control you. Emotions are indicators. Positive emotions, indicators of the need for gratitude, and to share and to give. Negative emotions, an indicator of pain and the need to change something. But emotions are just indicators, which means decisions should not be made from them. And the biggest weakness, I think, right now in this portion of humanity is how many people allow themselves to be controlled by their emotional state. Now, can your emotional state inspire you to do good things? Yes. Can your emotional state inspire you to do impulsive or bad things? Yes. Should you allow ever your emotional state to be your deciding factor instead of a contributing factor to your actions taken? No, because emotions change usually, some people say, as many as 3 times in a minute, depending on if you're having linking thoughts. But fact remains, tens or dozens or hundreds of times in a day, your emotional state will change. And so if you make decisions from emotions, not a good idea. The last one is a weak-minded person stops caring about basic needs. They stop caring about self-care, eating, showering, taking care of themselves on a daily basis. Now, if you're housebound or you have no reason to do it, this is a little bit different. Certainly housebound people are going to have a different life, and people in quarantine, I think, are having a different life. I talk to people all the time who are like, I don't know how I'm going to get back into a schedule when I go back to work after quarantine's over, whenever that happens. But what we're talking about really is people who allow their anxiety or depression or whatever to get so bad that they can't do basic things. Again, this doesn't mean they're bad people, but it means their mind has been weakened because they're allowing their circumstances to dictate their actions, both on an automatic and a thought-based mindset. If you find that you are dealing with weak-mindedness, I encourage you to get some sort of help, whether that be a counselor, a minister, psychologist, psychiatrist, coach, but some sort of assistance so you can re-strengthen your mind. The good news is the mind is elastic. It does bounce back. And so it's important to realize that even if you've had moments of weakness, it doesn't define who you permanently are. Also doesn't define who you're going to be even a week, month, or year from now. So it's worth reinvestigating if you've gone through a bit of a dry spell in that area of your life. But until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.